Hey everyone, welcome to the Sackhoff Show. Thank you so much for joining me on this Tuesday. I am overjoyed about this guest. You guys, this is one of the guests that when I started a podcast, everyone just assumed they'd be one of the first guests. But as I've said before, I tried to avoid these people because I was like, I am more than the sum of my parts. That is not the case. I am these people. These people are me. They are my family. So I'm slowly going through my Battlestar Galactica cast. I want to remind you that I want you to stick around for the hindsight where we talk about every episode and I drag my producer down with me. Send your questions and your comments to thesackoffshow@gmail.com. But today's guest, let's get into it, you guys. Today's guest is none other than my friend, my second father, Eddie Olmos. It's a fantastic, fantastic episode. This is part 1 of 45. So it's long, but it's short. It could be 10 times longer. So if you don't know who Eddie is, I have no words for you. Eddie was in Miami Vice, Battlestar Galactica, Mayans, Stand and Deliver, Blade Runner. He has been around for so long. I could go on and on and on. He is a talent. He taught me how to act in 5 seconds. And he is a wonderful human being. So I'm going to get out of your way because the episode's long and I want you to stay and listen to the whole thing. So here you go. Here's Edward James Olmos. I'm excited to sit down with you for many, many, many reasons. But, I said the same thing to Trisha and I said the same thing to Mary, that when people found out that I had a podcast, of course, the only people they wanted me to talk to were Battlestar Galactica people.
Right.
And I refused because my ego was like, no, I am more diverse than Battlestar Galactica people. I'm not. It's true. I'm not. I'm not. That's it. That's all I have. I'm a one-trick pony. But so you've been on the list of interviewees for a long time, and I just haven't done it because, in my mind, I'm like, well, that's the, you're the low-hanging fruit, Eddie.
Mm-hmm.
I know. In a good
I'm
way.
on the ground already. I fell off the tree a long time ago.
No, okay.
I'm the oldest friend you have.
That's probably not true. Maybe it's true. Maybe it's true.
You have people who are closer to 80 than me? Or past 80?
My parents.
Oh, yeah, your parents. Yeah. Well, no, I think I'm older than your mom.
Hey, Sharon, we can't hear them. Not on the mics. Not really. It's okay. We're sitting here just to bring everybody up to speed. We are in Los Angeles, sitting at the dining room table of my friend Sharon, who is having construction on her house, and they decided to jackhammer today. So if you hear that.
But the house is beautiful.
It's gorgeous. There's no water in the pool, but the next time I get here, there should be.
Yeah. I'm moving in. I got my room ready and everything.
Don't you dare take that room. That is mine and Trisha's rooms. You cannot have it. You can't have it. But I wanted to talk to you because, God, we could talk for hours about the life that you've had. And I don't think you need any introduction because you've been in everybody's life for so long. My life, everyone's, but the people listening, you've been a part of this industry for so long that I don't think anybody could think of a time in their life where they hadn't seen something that you've been a part of. But I want to go back to growing up because you grew up in East LA.
Mm-hmm.
And you've always seemed to me to have the ability to picture what you wanted your life to be and manifest it. You always seemed like that to me. Were you like that as a kid? Is that something you learned, or was this just something that you had growing up that you were able to say, I want to do that and go for it?
You go back to the very beginning on the understandings. I'd have to go back to 4 or 5 years old when I picked up a ball. And it was like a tennis ball. And I started to throw it up in the air and it would bounce on the ground. And I'd throw it up in the air and I'd try to catch it and bounce on the ground. And pretty soon I started throwing it against the garage door and trying to just play. I was playing by myself. And then a friend came over and I tried throwing it to him and he threw it back to me. And I remember very precisely when that started and how I couldn't do any of that. I had no natural talent or gift for playing or catching balls and sports. I wasn't into, at that point, I hadn't been really playing sports like that. So I started playing that game, baseball. And I started throwing the ball back and forth to my friend, and we'd play every day. And pretty soon, after a while, I got to be able to catch it. And then pretty soon, I realized, I started to understand the game, and I started to watch it. And then I started to talk about it. Then I started to, when I was really young, at the age of around 6, I started reading. And it pushed me into reading more because I found something I wanted to read about, and it wasn't like ABCs and stuff like that. It was there was actual books. And so I got into reading about it, doing it, watching other people do it, and talking about it every day. And within a year, I was much more proficient at it. And then after the second year, now I'm around 7 years old, I was playing on a team in the neighborhood, and it kept me out of other kind of behavior, which was really nice. I didn't know at the time. I mean, I was born and raised in East LA, like you said, and the area that I was born in was quite interesting because it bordered on 4 major districts or gangs. Gangs were really the neighborhood kids that proclaimed that their street was their street and don't walk on their street. And they would own, so funny, because they felt that was their neighborhood and they policed it as if it was their neighborhood. And the older kids, there were 11, 10, 9, would, be hanging out together, and anybody that wasn't from there that walked in that street would be in trouble. And so what we ended up realizing is that I wasn't involved with any of them. And the street I lived on was literally on one end of it. I lived in a little, like an alley almost. It was a little street they called Cheesebros Lane, and it was bordered by First Street, Indiana, Lorena, and Brooklyn. And they were all like, the road would go all the way up the street and hit Brooklyn. Now it's Cesar Chavez Avenue Boulevard. But it would hit that. And the other streets kind of like went at angles. Lorena and Indiana run at angles. So they kind of met at this like 5-point area where all the streets, 5 streets connected. And then there was First Street. So everything on the other side of those streets belonged to somebody, some group of kids. So you really couldn't go walking around too much in other people's neighborhoods. So, and that was pretty much, that's how we were raised. And it's still pretty much that way. There's there's White Fence, there's Primera Flats, there's Lomita, there's, the groups, the streets and areas that are claimed by the kids that live in it. Okay. And you don't want to be from one group and try to walk in the other. And, it was pretty simple. And the violence that was done was all fist. It was all like, you might grab a stick or something, but there was no guns on the street then like that. And I'm talking about back in the 40s and early 50s. So, talking about 51, 52. I was born in 47. So, and I'm old. I know I look good, but I'm very old. And so, getting into, I learned about discipline on my own.
From playing ball.
Playing baseball. Discipline. And I learned how to make myself do something I loved to do when I didn't feel like doing it. Now, these are all things that you learn. They're not part of human nature. You learn these behaviors. You learn how to discipline, how to have persistence, determination, perseverance. And the key that I learned is to be patient, because I would wake up the following day able to do stuff that I wasn't able to do the day before.
Well, that's that 10,000 hours thing,
Yeah,
right? They say that, you put 10,000 hours into something to become an expert at it.
Not an expert, but the best.
Proficient, the best you could get?
Yes, exactly. There's the key. The key is not to become better than somebody else. That's really the key, okay? It's that you don't sit there and go, I'm going to be better than that kid. If you start to do that, then your whole intention is based on that idea. Why not make it, I'm just going to try to be the best that I can be, period. I don't care what the other guy's doing. That way, your intention is always inward and constant and motivates you to a point of where you become very, very good at what it is you love to do. But the key being, again, and I'll let you talk in a second, the key is that if you can discipline yourself to do the things you love to do when you don't feel like doing them, that is when you become all that you can be. I can't even begin to tell you. When I learned that, I was like 13, 14 years old, and I was playing a single-A ball for the Dodgers farm team. I was already catching major ball players and playing with the kids who were 18, 17, 18 years old. They were already on the farm, playing for the Dodger farm team. And I was only like 13 years old. And I had won the California State batting championship 2 years in a row at my age range. They had nabbed me. We want this kid. This kid is good. Grab this guy. And they grab them young. They're out there. They're out there when you're 10, 11 years old. They're out there watching you. And they know who you are, and they grab you. Bing! And they say, come on over. And they start talking to you, and they're very nice and everything. And so anyway, I was nabbed by the age of 14, I was inside of California Sun League, I played with Bobby Knopp and Gary Knopp, and the Knopp brothers. Bobby went on to be the coach for the Angels, and big time players that played really well.
That thing that you said, it's in my mind because it's something that we actually heard. We were at the Celebration of Life yesterday for Carl Weathers. And it was something that he would always say, be the student. What are you going to learn today? It reminded me so much of what you were just saying, is that don't enter into something trying to be better than everybody else. Enter into everything you do as, what am I going to learn today? How can I be the best student today? And that thing that you were talking about, that's how you do the 10,000 hours. That's how you continue to push through. And that's how you motivate yourself to do something that you don't necessarily have the desire to do that day.
Yeah.
Because, if you're always a student, that is how you do it. You're never the best.
No, I mean, I never got that. Now I've been doing my work since I entered into, now going from baseball, discipline, determination, perseverance, and patience that I learned while playing that game, I moved it immediately to music and dance. Remember, I was raised in 1955, 56, 57, 58, 59. Rock and roll came into play. And you had Little Richard, and you had Buddy Holly and the Crickets, and you had this music that materialized that wasn't on the planet before these kids started playing it the way they were playing it.
My mom talks about that, how music changed exponentially then.
Everybody changed. And then we're changing today because of our art forms. You can see by the art form, meaning a younger artist or a young mind or a young innovative thought comes out and it affects everybody.
When you were growing up, were there limitations that you felt were put upon you because you were Latino? Or was that something that you gave no credence to?
I never thought once about it. I mean, I was raised in what I consider now to be, and people have actually quoted me a lot through my life, because I don't see, I went on when we did the the UN.
For Battlestar.
Yeah. And we talked with the entire planet. We spoke in front of the UN, and people could actually go online and see what we said.
You and Mary and Ron Moore went, correct?
And David Icke. Yeah, the four of us went. And we sat there and we discussed different things that the UN does every day. They had never done this with a television show, commercial television show. They brought us in there and they disclosed some of the things that they do, like reconciliation, for example, between different countries to reconcile their differences and try to get two enemies to speak together and to stop any violence, physical violence, and become communicative. Where they end up speaking to one another and not, trying to kill each other like what's going on right now.
My God, I wonder if what used to work at the UN no longer works anymore.
Well, no, it never did.
Days, exactly. I was going to say, I don't know many times when you've gone into two countries that are fighting and completely opposed and actually been able to stop it.
Well, they do eventually, because inevitably what happens is you run out of people. No, you usually run out of people.
Well,
you start killing everybody, and pretty soon you have nobody to kill, and then what is there left, And then in the case of like Ukraine, you have a larger country moving in on a smaller country, and in case of Israel and the Palestinian movement, you have a difficulty that goes back thousands of years, and that's really difficult. And that's what we had in our program, Battlestar. You had the Cylons, and they, for years and years and years and years, had developed themselves in one intention, that's to eliminate humanity, because humanity was the problem. And so that being said, we went ahead and we did that. So you asked me questions about what I felt like as a Latino. My area that I was born and raised in was not a melting pot. It never was a melting pot. But there was an incredible salad. There was lettuce, there was tomato, there was onion, there was olives, okay? And on the top of that salad, you could put French dressing or Russian dressing. It had it all there. It was all there. Every single immigrant to the West came and landed in East Los Angeles. Yeah, east of Los Angeles River. That's what it was.
Yeah.
That's what it was called. Everything west of the LA River was affluent. It had funding, it had money.
Yeah.
Everything on the other side was people were starting, so everything was affordable.
That was the entry level.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. And you could actually, it was really, really incredible. You could actually buy a house, and you could
not anymore.
No, because it's been gentrified.
Well, all of Los Angeles
is really been very expensive.
Mm-hmm. What is it about you that has always sort of felt an ability or a desire to protect the underdog, whether it be a person, a country, a movement, an ideology? Like, you, to me, have always seemed like you've got a lot of fight in you for other people.
That comes through learned behavior. I learned that from my parents, and my mother was, she was notorious in helping others and standing up for people who couldn't speak for themselves. And she was feisty. She was really, really feisty. She would.
How old was your mother when she passed?
She was 92. And all I can tell you is that her life story, which people have asked me to document and make a movie about it, and I've been thinking about it for years and years and years. But it's such an incredible story of tenacious behavior of the highest realm. She was, to put it lightly, she had done so much in her life, from being just a girl being born and raised here, to a taxi driver, to a sheriff in the sheriff's department, to a electrical engineer.
Your mom was a sheriff?
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. She carried a gun for almost her whole life.
They don't tell you that on Wikipedia.
No, they sure don't. It was so funny. The last kind of job she had when she was in her, I made her retire from being in the hospital. She was a nurse. She went like 9 years to East LA Community College to study. And, usually people get through that in 2 years.
Yeah. Why did it take your mom 9? Did she have a million other jobs at the same time?
That plus she would take one class, 3-unit class per semester.
Yeah, exactly.
So that takes you to get 60 units to graduate. Takes quite a while doing it that way. Okay?
How old was your mother when she decided to be a nurse?
She was in her late 40s.
Okay.
And went ahead and became a nurse in her early 50s. And then went to work at the County General Hospital and became the first woman to walk into the AIDS ward at the County General Hospital when they made the AIDS ward, when they actually put it up.
Interesting.
Because, we're talking about 87, 86, 87.
The height of
the
AIDS
epidemic. Yeah, because nobody knew anything about it. Even the doctors wouldn't go in there.
No, Ryan White, I think, didn't Ryan White, that's the first time I became aware of HIV/AIDS, when Ryan White, I believe, got HIV from a blood transfusion. And that was probably in the 80s, the middle 80s, because I was born in 80, so probably 86. Then Magic Johnson, probably 89.
Yeah, well, 87,
91.
I think 87 or 88 is when they put the
ward
ward.
Yeah.
Where they knew that there was this thing called AIDS.
Yeah.
Nobody knew if you got it was ingested through the air. No one knew if it was by touch, saliva. No one knew anything. So they were trying to figure out how it was transmitted. And then finally they realized it was transmitted.
Blood.
Yeah.
Blood and fluid. Yeah.
Yeah. She went in. She was the first one in there, and she stayed in there for almost 20 years.
Interesting.
Yeah, and she would work from 11 o'clock at night till 7 in the morning.
God, she got the shit shift.
Well, she wanted it.
Why?
It's my mother. Don't ask me.
Oh, my God.
She would do stuff during the day. She needed to do stuff during the day. That's how she would put it.
Oh, my God. I literally always think to myself, if you're going to get hurt like in the morning and not on a shift change.
That's funny.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I've spent enough time in hospitals to don't be on a shift change and don't be in the middle of the night. Like, that is just not fun. And emergency rooms are a nightmare in the middle of the night. So
getting back to the question, Latino.
Yes.
The key was that we were born and raised inside of an area that was multiple. There was, for instance, in the mornings on Wednesday, you get up and go to school, walk 4 years old, 5 years old, going to elementary school, grammar school. My grandfather would be walking, my great-grandfather would be walking us to school. And we'd be walking along, and on the corner, there would be, at 7 in the morning, we're walking to school, and there would be guys dressed up with ties and with their watchtowers. Okay? Those are Jehovah's Witnesses.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? But once a month, we'd get a knock on the door from the Mormons asking us if anybody had died recently from our household, because they would put it in their book of David. I don't know what they call the book, where they put every single person that's ever died and ever lived is in their books. And they try to go around making sure that all those people get into heaven. They're religious.
Yeah.
They're religion. And of course, there was a synagogue right down the street. There was Methodist church. There was Catholic churches. Mm-hmm. And my great-grandparents were American Baptists, American Southern Baptists. I was raised American Southern Baptist.
Really?
Now, then you got to realize
I know Baptists.
Okay. You got to know what fire and brimstone in Spanish sounds like. It is like
Well, isn't it in tongues though?
Aren't tongues. It's forget the tongues. It's like when they start to get into the way that they would present,
like
good
the El
and evil.
Diablo.
Unbelievable! It was like an incredible. I mean, people were. It would scare the hell out of you.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, they were serious. They were really serious in making sure that you realized what you were getting into if you didn't listen to them. And so anyway, we're Southern Baptists, I'm American Baptists. So it's the difference between American Baptists and Southern Baptists. But we were American Baptists on First Street and I think it was Gage. I think it was and it's still there. I went by there the other day, and it's still there. The church is there, and
is it still a Baptist church?
Yeah, it's still the same exact American Baptist church. And my great grandfather was the custodial keeper of the church. So on Sundays we'd go there, and we would get there early. And he'd open the church, and then we'd go and we would help him. We were little kids, 3, 4, 5 years old, and we would go with him, and we would like put all the chairs up. Like they were normal chairs, but usually the chair was down. So we'd push the chair up and the seat, and then we'd make sure that all the missiles, or no, what are the missiles? They were songbooks.
Yeah, what are they called? I think you're right with that. I'm trying to go back to my
Baptist religions.
Well, my Catholic.
Were you Catholic?
We were Catholic.
Yeah, well, Catholic. Now listen to this one. So we start off our lives in the Baptist understanding, where we would go in the morning and open the church, and my grandfather would go around doing everything he had to do to get the church prepared for people to come at 8:00. And they would get there by 8:00, and there was usually the people who got there at 8:00 were people that were working in the church, in the cafeteria, and because they would start making food for everybody.
Right.
So.
And then mass would start like at 9 or
9:00. The church, and they would split. They would have a general meeting with everyone, kids and everybody, and then they would split the kids off, and we would go to Sunday school, and they'd shut the doors, and that's when the hollering and screaming would start, and all the unbelievable drama. But in Spanish, it's like really, really intense. So incredible. I mean, it's just like your mouth would drop on the ground.
Little did you know that was probably where the love of theater was.
Yeah, I mean, literally.
How to control, how to mesmerize a crowd.
Yeah, how to do it. But we couldn't see it. They didn't want us to get involved in it. They tried to keep the youth outside of, you had to be over like 15 or 14 or 15 to get into the main conference room or this main church while they were doing the services.
Because it would scar you for life.
Yeah, exactly. It would scare the hell out of you.
It would push you into a life of sin.
I don't know. It was pretty intense.
And then your family went into the Catholic religion after?
Watch this. My father, who came from Mexico, and he wasn't born here, he followed my mother. My mother got pregnant with my brother in Mexico when she was 14. Okay. And he was a young kid. He was like 17, 18 himself. And he was a young kid, and she was a young girl, and she got pregnant. She had the baby in Mexico and then came over here, and my father followed her. And the year was 1945. So he got here the day the war ended. So he's on the train coming across from Mexico City to the United States, Los Angeles, and in a train that was full of military people, and everybody's celebrating. He said it was amazing because they had just won the war. And so,
what was immigration like in 45?
Well, it was different. I mean, that wasn't what it is today. There wasn't thousands and thousands of people rushing the border.
Yeah.
That happened because of the understanding of the insufficient lifestyle that being held
running
outside.
Away from.
Yeah, that's all it is.
Well, that's what it is everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. And so he came here, and so when we were around 7, one day he says, "I want to take you to my church." And well, okay, let's go to your church, Dad. We hadn't even heard of another church. There was no other church. It was just our church that my great-grandparents were part of. And so he took us to Catholic church. And it was just my brother and sister and myself, those three of us. And then my mom didn't go. And we went into this church, and we sat down. and then people were kneeling down, and then they would sit down, and nobody say anything, and then they'd sit, they kneel again.
Where's the screaming?
Where anything? I mean, there was nothing.
Yeah.
Okay, and we were real quiet. Everybody's praying, and I'm looking around. All of a sudden, in starts the whole ceremony.
Yeah.
You know? And so they come in, and they come in with the host and everything, and the cross and everything, and people stand up, and then we sit down, and then we stand up. And then we sit down, and then we kneel down. Then we kneel down, and then we kneel down, and then we sit down, and then we stand up.
Yeah.
And this guy, the priest, is talking in Latin.
Yeah.
We didn't speak in English.
Yeah.
The whole mass was in Latin.
Oh, Jesus, yeah.
It was all Latin. They didn't. It wasn't converted back to English. I didn't start learning. Hearing English in the Catholic Church until well into the 60s.
Yeah, I think my mom learned entire masses in Latin.
Latin.
Yeah.
I mean,
and especially went to Catholic schools, and that's what
you learn Latin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so 48 minutes later, it was over. Now, the Baptist church, we'd walk in at 7 a.m. and wouldn't leave until 7 o'clock at night.
Gosh, crap.
Okay? Yeah. The whole day. And
you're like 48 minutes and I get into heaven?
No. We got to go to Clifton's.
we go to lunch afterwards?
Yeah. Instead of lunch with them, we'd go to Clifton's right there in downtown LA, right?
You're like, I'm Catholic.
I went Catholic all the way.
Hand on the Bible.
Never, ever, ever did I look back again.
No.
Not that I didn't appreciate the Baptist church. I sure did. It was incredible. My great-grandparents, come on. But I really appreciated
the 48 minutes.
Yeah.
I know.
And it was over. And then we could go have lunch. And then my dad took us to the movie.
Oh.
I mean, here in Los Angeles, when you went to the movies in LA, you got to remember where you were going.
Mm.
You know, we'd go to the Egyptian. We'd go to Grauman's Chinese Theater. We go to El Capitan, the Paramount.
Mm-hmm. These are gorgeous, big theaters.
We would watch
been around for a long time.
We would watch the Bible. We would watch Lawrence of Arabia.
Mm-hmm.
We would watch major, major films that were like, like blow your brains out, man. Such an incredible world that they would expose you to. And so we got inside of films at a very young age. And we would go there every Sunday. We'd go to Mass, eat at Clifton's, and then go to movie.
Is that the moment where, because you said you were baseball and then music, but like, your love of cinema and film and theater, is that something that you set out to do? Because, did you were like, I'm going to get my 10,000 hours and I'm going to do this as a career. Was that an idea or was it an accident?
It was a combination of events that happened. Remember, baseball led me into reading, led me into being with my dad and my mom. They divorced. That was a major, major event. We were like, I was maybe about 7 or 8, maybe 9 when they got divorced. And so my father lived in one place and my mother lived in another place. And we would live with my mother. And we could see my father once every other weekend on Sunday for 8 hours. That was what the judge, and then during the summer, we could see him for 2 weeks.
Was that normal
I have
back
no
then?
idea.
Or was that was your dad punished?
I think my mother.
Your mother punished him?
Yeah, my mother.
It's that Baptist upbringing.
I don't know how that judge got to this level and why they were so strict.
Well, I don't think that men, I'm speaking out of turn here and we'll figure this out in the hindsight, but I don't know if men started getting equal custody of children until much, much later, more recent. It was, back when I was a kid, if people got divorced, the mother got the kids and the father paid the child support, and that's what it was, and so I think that fathers sort of, splitting custody or getting more of the custody is something that's actually more new.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree, because now it's especially in California now, everything's divided right down the middle. There's no more contesting anything. You're married to somebody for X amount of years, you're going to get half of everything that you guys built.
That's what it is.
That's what it is. And I think it's fair. Okay. Yep. You guys were living together. That, you built this world, and you're going to split the world right down the middle, and each one of you gets such. And then if the husband has been working and the wife hasn't, then he has to support her with alimony. And
that's what it has been as well, is that, I think partially because women didn't hold jobs.
Right.
And so, of course, they would get the children because that was their job.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So, and that's shifted.
That whole understanding. Anyway, so we were with my father. My father, when we'd go visit him, and especially during the summer when we spent the weeks with him, he was a great dancer. Not a professional dancer, but just loved mambo, loved cha-cha-cha, loved swing. He knew how to two-step. He knew a lot of tango. He knew a lot of dances. As kids, his family, they danced a lot. There was 11 of them in his family, brothers and sisters. And so whenever they were anywhere, they'd put on music and they would all dance. It was like a party every day. They were always together, and they were always, so they were all really good dancers. So I learned to dance about the age of 9 or 10, and swing and two-step. And at that time, remember, the music was changing. So television came out in about 52, 53, and we had a television in our house. And I remember that whole transition of going from not having a TV to having a TV. Yeah. And so we started watching, the Ed Sullivan Show.
And you learned to move your hips.
Yep, exactly. I started watching Elvis Presley on Ed Sullivan's Show, and different acts that were on television, and we're exposed to the world, and of course we in turn were learning what we could from our fathers and mothers and every surrounding areas, and then the world was being led into us, and that's why. Today, the world is led into the child's really young. I mean, if you give a phone to a kid, you got to be aware of what you're doing, because you're allowing them a key to all access to all.
Don't get me started.
Okay, I won't.
Get me started on phones and children.
I know, it's really difficult. It's very difficult.
But it's also, it's
very detrimental.
Awful.
It's detrimental to the human mind. It is detrimental. So that being said, we ended up going with my dad, and we started getting to dancing music. And then when I was in 1960, I played my last game, and I didn't know. I just, one day I was taking a bath after a doubleheader. I had played 2 games. I played 18 innings in one day, and I was kind of washing up in the bathtub. As I was washing up, I said to my dad, "Hey, Dad, I'm not going to play baseball anymore." I got in my head because I wanted to sing and play rock and roll music. And I got it through from 10 to about 14. I'd been inside of music really strongly, along with the stuff that my father was playing at Price Prado, Tito Puente, and all the different great salsa and mambo and cha-cha-cha that was being, I was being exposed to by my dad and Glenn Miller and Artie Shaw and all of these old band members, that would play beautiful music. It was incredible. Duke Ellington and my father, Ray Charles. I mean, my father was really pretty extensively moving through. He loved music.
How did that affect your father? Did it?
Oh, he went nuts.
Yeah.
He and my coaches went crazy. They could not. I had interventions. What are you doing? You're throwing away. You're throwing this. Do you know what you're doing? And I said, yeah, I do. I want to do what I did in baseball. I want to do in rock and roll music. I want to be a singer. But you can't even sing.
I was going to say, can you sing?
No.
Well, there you go.
But either could, Bob Dylan. But he could, little did I know that Bob Dylan could write.
Yes.
And little did I know that after I learned what he was doing, he could sing very well.
Yeah.
He sang very, very good. But his tone and everything, you know.
Well, he's one of the best storytellers
Ever.
He's just a phenomenal storyteller. And
so I got into music, and then I got into performances, and I started performing 7 days a week. Okay. So I was playing on the Sunset Strip in the late 1960s, when I was really young, at Pandora's Box on Sunset Boulevard, right by Highland and Sunset. Well, not Highland, Crescent Heights. Crescent Heights and Sunset was a little place where the Preston Epps that did bongo rock would play.
I feel like it was still there when I moved here, wasn't it?
I don't think so. I mean, they had to knock down the building. It was right in that where Crescent Heights comes over Laurel Canyon.
Maybe I've just read about it.
Laurel Canyon comes down.
So many of those old places up on Sunset are still there.
Yeah. So anyway, I started and ended up at Gazzarri's on the Sunset Strip, and I stayed there for years, literally years, playing 7 days a week. And of course, we got really good. By 66, 67, we were
7 days a week. Yeah.
Yeah.
7 years of 7 days a week. Yeah.
You
got your hours.
Yeah. And our band was really good. It was a bunch of little kids from one little area, but we played really good. We played really well. And so that being said, I went, and when I was 17, I went to East LA Community College, and I didn't know at that time that I had dyslexia. And my son was diagnosed when I was in my 30s. When I was in my 30s, my Bodhi was diagnosed with dyslexia. But they didn't have the word when I was in my 50s. In 1950s, they didn't have the word dyslexia.
No.
And so they were always thought that you were just not able to understand and take care of.
I had someone, a friend of mine, say that he was not a starter. Like that's what they called it. And he was dyslexic.
Yeah. I mean, what it was is that what took me.
Oh, it was Joel McHale. Joel McHale was called, because he's dyslexic.
Yeah. And what it does is it hits people in different ways. And one out of every two people has it. And that's what you don't realize.
Interesting. In different ways.
Yes,
of course,
exactly.
In different extremes.
Extremes, exactly. So my extreme is that what takes me 5 hours to study and get into my brain and memorize it and really get it takes you 1 hour. So what you do in 1 day, takes me 5 days.
Did you realize that growing up, or did you just because it's interesting to me that
I thought I was stupid.
Well, yeah, and
because that's what they would tell you,
and that's what Joel said as well.
Yeah, like they would tell you were not trying hard enough.
Yes,
and then my mother would come in and say, "Excuse me, I see what my son does every day.
He's working his ass off.
Yeah, what are you saying? He's not." Well, then the only thing we can tell you, then he doesn't comprehend the material.
Exactly.
Now I could either be lazy or stupid.
Yeah.
I chose lazy.
Yeah.
And said to everybody, I'm just lazy. I'd bust my ass and I'd get a C.
Yeah.
And everybody else would bust their ass and get A's, straight A's.
That's a lot of kids though, and I think that people have really just started to diagnose children earlier, and sort of like the acceptance of different sort of like mental capacity disorders.
It wasn't until 1982 or 83, that Bodhi was diagnosed with dyslexia, because I took him to UCLA.
Well, and Bodhi is like 5 years older than me, so he was like 7 or 8.
Yeah, he was about 7, 8 years old. He was born in 75.
Right.
So he was about 7 or 8 years old when he was diagnosed with it. And the way we found out is that a teacher in his first second grade, we came in one day and says, I got to show you something. So I walked in, and there's Bodhi reading. Now, Bodhi would read like this. He'd go, and if the dog ran up the hill, okay? That's how he would read.
One word
at a time, and very staccato on the word. And all of a sudden we walk in and he's going, and the dog ran up the hill. And I saw him reading. And I said, what happened? What did you do? And I come around him. The book was upside down.
What?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, interesting. I went crazy. I said, wait a minute, wait. He can read upside down? What does that mean? She goes, yeah, for some reason he can. I said, this is not right. This is the rest of his life. He's got to look at things and flip them over.
It shifted his brain or something.
I don't know. So anyway, I went to UCLA, and I walked in there and I said, listen, and they said, well, then they started testing him.
He's been possessed by El Diablo. And his head's going to spin and he's going to vomit. Like, at this point.
It's so funny. And they came up very simply, oh, yeah, your son's dyslexic. And they said, what is it? And then they started giving the breakdown of what some of the symptoms are. And I said to them, I said, well, that happens to me. I get tired when I read. I have to.
Because your brain has to work harder, yeah?
And you fall asleep. You literally puts you to sleep. If I was sitting down reading, I'd go to sleep. I don't care how much I'd slept.
Maybe that's my problem.
I'm not kidding you. It's a major situation that people have to realize. If you pick up a book and you start to read it, you could have been sleeping all night for 10 hours, 12 hours.
Yeah.
Wake up. As soon as you wake up, you're sharp and everything. You sit down, you start to read. It's like if you took a sleeping pill. Like, somebody hit you over the head or something. Anyway, that's what I said, that happens to me. He goes, and then the doctor said it very calmly. Somebody had to give it to him. I said, holy shit, that's what I have. I have what Bodhi has, but I've never been diagnosed. And then I started to think about it and started to research it. And sure enough, I realized that my short-term memory was kind of difficult. It didn't grasp as quickly as my long-term did. And my short-term memory. So for me to learn scripts. It was a real trip.
What have you, because I've never noticed working with you in all the years that we worked together, I never noticed you, I mean, I always knew you were a hard worker, but I never saw you, working, like struggling with memorization. Did you learn tricks?
Yeah. Discipline.
That's the only trick.
It's the trick is repeat. Repetitive. That's why Meisner was such a good thing for me. Sanford Meisner was much better for me than was Stanislavski.
So, but you studied.
Yeah. I had worked with Meisner. I had worked with, I'd read about Stella Adler. I had read different methods of working in the field that we were in. That's what it's like playing baseball. If you didn't read the Babe Ruth story, if you didn't read Lou Gehrig's story, if you didn't read stories about people who were doing it, as well as talking to people, as well as doing it, and as well as watching people do it, what were you doing? It's like crazy. It's like trying to be in music without listening to music. What are you doing?
Well, but do you still believe that?
Yeah. I mean, I just finished doing a thing with Tom Selleck, and on his final episode of 15-year show, which is Blue Bloods. And they called me up and they wanted me to, he wanted me to be on the show and wanted me to do this one scene with him. And I said, so we worked it out and I went to do it. It took me 2 weeks, a week and a half of memorization of one scene, 8 pages.
Has it gotten harder as you've gotten older? Or was it always just hard?
It's just always been the same.
How did you
incredible amount of discipline of working.
Take on the amount of dialogue that we had on Battlestar?
I'd do nothing but work on it.
Ad-lib it?
No, there was no ad-libbing. How much time I never ad-libbed. I didn't have to. The thing was written so well.
I didn't. I ad-libbed quite a bit.
Good.
But not like...
you enhanced it. You made it better.
But not like... I didn't change massive amounts of dialogue. What I did was I would, unbeknownst to myself, the way I memorize and the way it comes out are very different sometimes. Word for word memorization is not easy for me. Right. That takes tons of time, repetition, someone reading it with me over and over and over and over again. But to memorize a feeling, to memorize what my character would say next to get that flow for me is very fast, but it's usually about 85% the words that are written. And so I always, I say to someone when I get a job, do you want this word for word, or do you want me to inhabit the character and have it come out the way that I interpret it? And a lot of times it's the latter, and it usually comes out actually pretty close to what's written.
Of course. And that's really your method.
Mm-hmm.
And my method was I work out every day. And I'll do some kind of either swimming, or and right now I'm into, because of my cancer, I had to work on different ways. I couldn't do the what I was doing before. And so I got a rowing machine, one of those rowers,
Mm-hmm.
So right now I'm rowing like 6.5 miles a day. That's about an hour and 17 minutes, hour and 16 minutes, depending on how well I'm pulling.
Mm-hmm.
And at full intensity, 10 rather than 5 or 6, and weight. How much?
Yeah, sometimes I like to put it on 5. And then I go, God, it's so easy today.
That's not fair.
So easy for me today to do my workout. No.
So anyway, I keep it pretty strong. Anyway, so now when I'm working out, I'm constantly just thinking about what I'm going to have to do, memorize-wise.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm swimming, I swam a mile every day for years. And so when I was swimming, in the Meisner, the process was turning everything into one solid paragraph with no commas, no periods.
Yeah.
And
what is the methods? Is that the Christopher Walken method?
No, that's Meisner.
Who is it?
It's Meisner, Stanford Meisner.
I worked with someone that was like,
used it.
Cut out all of the periods and the this and that.
Stanford Meisner. Meisner, Stella Adler, all the giants that made the group theater back in the 1930s, with Strasberg and all these guys. They all went in and they were learning the method. And then the method, Adler and Meisner went to talk with Strasberg, and they went to Europe and came back and said Strasberg is changing his method, but Stanislavski method.
Mm.
And so they changed it from the cumbersome way of teaching to perform and act and how you got into the character, and from inside out to outside, and then learning it by repetition. And so repetition got into play, and they started that. And that helped me out immensely, because repetition was much stronger and easier for me than the other, of having to learn from the method of
like learn the character and then learn the words.
Yeah. And learn, just from the inside out. And you couldn't use a limp until what gave you the limp, and where did the limp come from? And I get it. I get all that. Where in England and in other parts of the world, their method was put the limp on and then learn where it comes from, but put the limp on right away and start to use it, start to get into the understanding, and then figure out where it came from.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really interesting how simple, but it's how difficult it becomes. It's only as simple as you make it. But if you really get into diving into Stanislavski's method, it's so cumbersome.
I'm not familiar with what any of the methods are.
Okay.
I have no idea.
Okay, well, that world in the 30s and 40s was paramount. You could not be inside of this world of theater and storytelling and become a performer without being
having a method.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
You had to have had professional training. It's like learning Shakespeare.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't be in England, in Europe, you can't be a really strong actor and storyteller without being able to do Shakespeare.
Well, I think that there was an actor that, who was it? Was just talking about this actually, and saying that, in England, it's still very much this way. And affluent kids are getting into the schools that teach the theater. And then those are the kids that are working in theater in England. And the problem is that the accessibility to those schools is not prevalent for kids that do not have. And therefore, those kids are getting left behind. And so the idea that it's opening up a bit in England and that sort of way of thinking is like, changing a little bit. And they're opening the doors to kids that haven't studied professional theater.
Or classical.
Or classical theater.
Yeah. And storytelling is really what we do. We're storytellers. It could be through a song. It could be through theater. It could be through television. It could be through, stand-up comedy. You're telling stories. You ever want to capture an audience? Just say, let me tell you a story. Bing. Everybody in the audience will stop what they're thinking and let you tell the story.
Yeah.
That's how incredible that understanding is. So if you're ever like in public and you want to grab attention, let me tell you a story. And then everybody will listen.
Will listen to you.
Yeah.
When I first started acting, because I moved here in 97, 98. And I remember the studying thing was still very prevalent. And
it is today.
This idea that you have to study in order to work. And I didn't do that. I just moved here and I started working. But I think what happened, if I look back on it, is that I believe that I was training. It just wasn't the way that other people trained. So I would go into my bathroom when I was a kid. I would watch a scene in a movie that I liked. And after the movie, if there was a scene that made me feel something, I would go into the bathroom, I would look in the mirror, and I would act the scene back out. And I would take it into the backstory of the character. So I would then start talking as the character in scenes that we didn't see and what happened after or what happened before. And so I would create these stories and these characters and I would see what my face did and see if I could make my face do different things. And that's how I trained myself to act. But I was never classically trained. And I was very insecure about it for a while because I think people made me feel insecure about it because it was the first question I was always asked.
Where did you study? It's always been that way.
And my response was always like,
I did.
My bathroom.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, a lot of people, there's a lot of people that never went to an acting class, but study human behavior.
Yeah.
My mastery isn't studying human behavior. And I'm working every second, every day. I'm looking at a person walking across the street and I'm looking at what they're thinking, what they're going through as they're walking across the street. And if you just watch people, if you people watch, you come up with an extraordinary amount of understanding of human behavior. And that's where you learn it. And then you just do it.
Well, but that's what I think that so to fast forward, obviously, because I'm going to talk about an experience that I've talked about very much that is that when I started acting, I think because people made me feel insecure, I then interned that as, well, fake it until you make it. So I just started faking it because I was under the impression that I didn't really know how to act because people told me I've never studied. And so I just started taking it not as seriously as I should have. And I remember in a scene in Battlestar when you basically got really mad at me, and you basically got mad at me because I wasn't being professional. I wasn't paying attention. I wasn't caring. I was just sort of doing what had worked for me up until that point, which was just, whatever happens, happens, And I remember you pulled me aside, and it was the scene where I come in and I tell you that I was responsible for Zach's death.
Ooh.
And you said to me, you pulled me aside and you said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "What do you mean?" And you were like, "Well, every time they say cut, you go off and you play. You just play. You're over there, you're talking until they say action. You're not in it." And I was like, "Well, but I'm doing it." And you were like, "But you're not." And you said, and I'm paraphrasing obviously, but you said, if you really tried, I think you'd be really good. I was like, what the fuck do you mean? And I'm like, here. Like, it's like, I'm like the old hat on this show. This is like my third series I've been on. And you said, just listen. Listen to what I'm saying to you as the commander. Just listen and be there and stop fucking around and show up. And I was like, okay. And on the next take, I listened. For the first time in my entire career, I actually listened to what the person across from me was saying, because that was my protection. My protection was to not be in it, like to just act. I thought that's what acting was. I thought, because I'd never studied, no one told me what acting was or what training was. So I just thought, oh, well, if I hit the beats, that's what they mean. And I listened for the first time in my career. And I remember being so overcome with emotion as Kara that I
amazing.
Covered my head and walked out of the room because I couldn't keep myself from crying. And it was the first time that I'd actually realized that I was acting, like really acting, because I was her. And it just blew my mind and it changed my career because but you made it so simple. You told me what to do. But it was something that no one had ever taken the time to do because I think they just thought I was doing it. But no one had told me to just listen. And it changed my career. I mean, you know.
Yeah, your method.
It changed my method.
Exactly. And no, your method was strong because you came in very strong. You're very confident, very strong in your understanding of life. No, you were.
Very
and
confident.
And when I met your mother, I realized why. I remember going to dinner with your mom the very first time. And we went to an Italian restaurant.
Yeah.
And you and her. And we had just started. And I got to meet her. And boy, she was like my mom. She was tough as nails.
My mom is tough as nails.
Yeah. She's a very strong, very good person. Mm-hmm. But don't mess with her.
No, don't
try to take the shortcut. Always make sure that you're being honest. Because she'll bust you and she'll tell you to your face, hey, you're bullshitting. Mm-hmm. What? And that was her life.
My mom was not scared of anything.
At all, ever.
My mom
and it
was
made you that way too.
The first one of the daughters, she's one of 4 daughters, and the only one that went to school, the only one that went to college, and she became a teacher. And my mom was a teacher when women weren't teachers like that. Like women didn't as much go to college, go into the workforce. They didn't support families, which is what my mom did. My mom supported our family until my dad was able to start making money at what he wanted to do. Mm-hmm. My mom is tough, very, very, very tough.
And gave it to you. And so when I met you, and when we started to work, it was amazing. I don't know if you remember our very first ever meeting together on the very, very first day of work.
God, you've got a better memory than I do.
Okay, here we go. Very first day of work. We are going to do, they had been shooting in the morning, Trisha and James, doing some of their love scenes inside of their bedroom. And they were just, them two. And then they broke away from that. We had lunch. And the next scene after lunch was the So Say We All scene.
Oh, yeah.
That was the very first time we ever worked.
Yeah.
Ever, as characters inside of our characters. It was the first time anybody was going to be on camera. This was the last scene
of the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. And I said to myself, this is really, really. And I was working with kids. I knew. Mary, I had worked with her. Mike Hogan, I hadn't worked with him, but I knew a little bit about Mikey's upbringing. Plus, he was a theater actor.
A theater actor, yeah.
Okay, as was Mary and myself. We were all from the theater. And so storytelling in the theater is a little bit different than telling it on film and television. So here we were. But everybody else, there was kids that had never done anything in front of television, in front of cameras ever. This was like their very first time. And here we were, and they were all excited, and they were all dressed up. We were all in costume. And we went to my trailer. And this was the most memorable moment of my life, just about. It made what we have today. That moment in time was either going to nail it or going to completely destroy it, because I was so intense. I don't know if you remember sitting there, all of us, every single person that was in that scene, there were regulars, was sitting in my trailer.
Yeah, it's coming back
Mary, everybody, and just the actors. And I said, well, we're about to go through, and I'm paraphrasing myself. I can't remember exactly how I said it, but I said, basically, what we're about to go through is something that is really going to mean an awful lot to an awful lot of people. This is the ending of the first major piece of work that we will be exposing to the world.
Right.
And as far as I'm concerned, we are so fortunate because we've all read the script and we all know the story. And it's a beautiful, wonderful story that is so complex that inevitably people will be driven to want to see more. But this scene we're about to do is the catalyst of them wanting to come back and see the next show. This is our ending. This is the ending of the movie.
This is how you hook them. You hook them or you don't.
Yeah, this is it. Okay. And so I knew that none of us, and a lot of them, would be standing there and not really understanding the depth of what we were doing at that precise moment, because we had gone through the story, all the death, all the things that we had done,
the loss,
everything, which we read in the script. You would read it, but that's not acting it through.
Well, and not only that, most of the people in that scene were background performers that didn't read the whole script.
Right.
There were hundreds of people in that room.
More than that.
Yeah.
There's hundreds of people in the room. But I didn't bring them them back.
No, not into the call.
No.
Or the talk. Yeah.
Yeah. Just us. And I said, this show is so important, guys. I hate to tell you, I said to you guys, I hate to tell you, but for Mary, myself, and Michael, this is a dream come true. Finally. Okay, because this is major, 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 major storytelling at a very high level. But for many of you here, this is your first step. And all you can think about is what's next. So you guys are into the what's next understanding of your life. You know, okay, I'm doing Battlestar 1, fantastic. Well, I wonder what I'm going to do next. You know, what I'll be able to now catapult myself and move. That's all you're thinking about. Where Mary, myself, and Michael were saying, I've been doing this for decades. And now here I am. And this is it. I'm the colonel and leading humanity. And remember, I'm Latino. I'm a dama. Now, most people don't understand what that means, okay? And as far as I understand my life, I had prepared for many, many, many years to get to this level of storytelling and using it and being able to represent myself, but also what I represent as a culture and humanity. There's never been to this day, a leading actor in a show that was Latino, that was going into the world and of television,
but not playing a Latino, just playing a character.
Yeah. I mean, it was Guillermo William Adama is never categorized. Race never even came up in any level. You're either from Caprica or they're different.
Well, that was the thing about Battlestar, right? It didn't matter if you were where you were from, if you were a woman or a man, it didn't matter.
You were from the planet that you were from. And that was what made you who you were, and not the culture or the ethnicity. So anyway, I got us all in there and I told us this, and I said that we would not be getting very many accolades for this as time went on, but that this show would become the one most important aspect of storytelling that we could ever have done in our lifetime. And no, it went right through one ear and out the other for people because you guys were not ready for it.
Well, but it was, I think that, because and I can tell you what I was thinking. I was literally thinking, this is the 4th TV show that I've done. They've all been canceled within the first season. And I was sitting there thinking, this will be a fun miniseries. But I've been on shows that should have gotten another season and didn't.
Yeah.
So I was like, why would this one get another season? And I couldn't understand why or how you knew from that script that this show was different. And granted, I read the script and it was amazing. And I knew I had to be a part of it because I knew it would change my career and the way that people were seeing me as an actress. But I didn't understand the magnitude of the show in its entirety like you did. And what was it about it that made you know that?
It was 2003. Okay. We hadn't yet had some of the innovations that we're having, that were coming into being. Social media was barely starting to become a reality.
You had to go to the internet cafe to read message boards if you wanted to, because our phones were flip phones and they barely texted.
Okay. But I knew that I had worked my whole life in storytelling, and that stories were the way that people understood themselves. That's why you read a book. That's why you look at a painting. That's why you look at a theater. That's why you go to see a movie. That's why you listen to other people in conferences, and their storytelling, and they're advancing your thought process. Now, I knew for a fact that this medium is one of the most powerful mediums that's ever been created by humankind, ever. The audiovisual event is monumental. And especially when it's shown on the big screen. You go into a theater where there's no peripheral vision, and you got stereo and Dolby DLX sound and all this shit. And then you have the screen is, 80
amazing.
feet.
Still to this day. It just gives me goosebumps every time a movie starts.
Right. It takes you inside of itself. And it attacks your subconscious mind. It goes straight into your subconscious mind. And your conscious mind is trying to decipher it. Oh, that was special effects, the guy's brain blowing up, But the subconscious mind just records the images and the story, so that it's in there. It's in there as an exploding head. It's not in there as a special effect.
No, your body tries to understand where you've seen something before when you're going through trauma. That's one of the things that we do, is your brain goes through your data bank to say, where have I seen this before? Where have I seen this before? Oh, that's where I've seen this before. That's what I'm supposed to do. This is the resolution or the solution to the problem that I'm in. I've seen this before. That's why, if you're, in a plane crash, God forbid, your brain will search for how to handle the situation. And only 10% of the population's brains can actually handle traumatic. If I've read this. Well, I need to do the research on it, but supposedly less than 10% of the population's brains know how to handle a traumatic situation, having not seen it or lived through it before. Like, they can figure out what to do.
Yeah. And so people who have watched our show, and I knew for a fact, will be able to understand that when there is a nuclear holocaust and you've lost everybody, and there's no dogs of yours left, no aunts, no uncles, no friends, no nothing. Every single human being that you knew, everything that you knew, every book, everything is gone. What are you going to do? You're going to commit suicide? Or are you going to understand that you have to go on living and push forward the humanity that we live in and help? How are you going to handle it? And if you've watched our show, you'll know how to handle it. If you haven't watched our show, you're not going to know how to handle it. You're going to, even if you watch our show, you might turn around and not know how to handle it, and turn around and say, okay, if everybody's gone, I'm out of here. Oop, I'm going to kill myself. I don't want to live in this. There's nothing. And no more libraries, no more doctors, no more, all of our science, everything's gone. It's all been the nuclear warfare has completely wiped out everything we know as a human and humanity and a sense of understanding. And so for me, this show was the key to the future. And I knew it the day I read the script. And I said to Ron, Ron, this is really important work. And what did we end up doing? In 2000, we finished in 2008. 2009, what did we do? Went straight to the UN. The only television show in the history of television that's ever been brought to the entire world and said, wait a minute, we got to stop for a second. I want you to see this scene. The scene where the reconciliation between the Cylon and the human. Now, the Cylons had wiped out humanity. They left 49,000 human beings alive up in space, and they were trying to track them down and kill them. Every 33 was like the best episode in the history of Battlestar, the very first episode we ever did. And I remember going and getting help from the university. I brought in a sleep deprivation doctor to talk to us, and everybody going, what do we do? What do we listen to this guy? What's going on? What do I do? Remember that?
I do. I remember people staying awake and shit. And I was like, you guys can do that. I'm going to go sleep and pretend like I'm tired. That you're doing exactly what Laurence Olivier said to Dustin Hoffman during My dear boy, called acting.
Yes. Learn it.
Yes.
Please, before you kill yourself.
Yes.
And there was a lot of us that did not sleep.
I know that. And I thought you guys were
they
nuts.
looked at
It's true.
And it's true. And
try
it
memorizing dialogue when you haven't slept.
You can't.
It's impossible.
You can't. You're so tired. You're so blown away.
I know.
So anyway, that's what we're doing here. You and I right now on this podcast are doing that. We're talking and people are listening and they're using, some of them are laughing at it. Some of them are saying this is stupid. And others are saying, wow, I never thought of it that way. And that's what this is all about. And all I can tell you is that when we finished in that room in my trailer that day, and we walked out of that trailer, everyone had to think about the moment that I walk out there and I say, what is wrong with all of you? Is this it? Is this what they died for? And I started. Remember, they wanted me to be standing with the priestess. And I told Reimer, I said, our director, I said, I don't want to stand up there. I want to be with the whole crew, all of us together. So you're shooting us as a unit. And then I asked him. I said, do your cameras move? And he kind of chuckled and says, Eddie, I got 5 cameras working here right now. I got you. I said, okay, good. Thank you. That's all I wanted to know because I don't want to do this too many times. Myself, I was telling myself this is a one-shot deal. Do you remember the first time I did it? It was perfect.
It was perfect.
It was just right on. And it was so right on that everybody and you, all you kids, I remember watching your faces as I said, so say we all. And you look at me and nothing. And 2 or 3 of you said, so say we all. And then you're looking at each other and then looking at me and I said, so say we all. And then, okay, so say we all. And then finally, so say we all. And I just let it out. And everybody went, yeah, so say we all. Because we were going to go find Earth. And that was our hope. And you could either join me or you didn't have to. But that so say we all scene became so poignant and so became so much an essence of who we are as human beings today. You know how many people still use that line to this day? Okay, hey, so say we all, and everybody knows what that means. And it became institutionalized and iconic in its own way. And I remember that David Icke said, he called up Ron Moore and he said to Ronnie, because he told me later, he says, I called him up. He says, we just did the So Say We All scene. And I got to tell you this right now. It was unbelievable because it worked. It worked. All of us. And the expressions on our faces and you guys were all being shot. And from the very beginning, you guys were all being photographed by different cameras. And you could see people like drifting. But the drifting was cool because we were in the middle of burying hundreds of our people that were there in front of us. We're going to throw them out the airlock, and so it became the essence of our story. From that moment on, the show was on. Boom, we were gone.
Mm-hmm.
It was all over. But the end. In the end, everybody didn't want to attend. And there was some of us that did. I remember you did. And it was so funny. It was so funny. So I can hardly wait. There was so. I know. I remember. We talked about it. I said, I can hardly wait to see what I do next. I said, Katee, someday down the line, maybe 30, 40 years from today, you'll look back at this moment in time and you'll say, wow, boy, that was and is. And to this day, our family, our BSG family, I've been in on television shows, some of the greatest television shows, Miami Vice, NYPD Blue, East West Wing, all of these shows that I've been on that are great shows and really tight and very strong. I've never been committed to the artistry and the people that were involved with any of those shows longer than it took for me to walk out the door and get in my car.
Yeah.
Here, I've seen or talked to somebody of our program, of our group, since the day we started to the day right today. Here we are, me and you. And, I'm with James all the time. Mm-hmm. I'm talking constantly with Truco. I'm talking constantly with Mary, and I go out to dinner at least once a week. Maybe.
Yeah, no, we are all very, very close. And that is very different than other shows. And I knew that the show would always be one of the best things I ever did. I knew that. Mm-hmm. But I also knew that as a performer and as an actor, I was desperate to do something different.
Of course.
And that was what drove me. What drove me was I wanted to wear a different uniform.
Sure.
And be someone different. The character was exhausting. Yeah. And I was tired. And I was done. And so that's what I did. And then I went on not right after that. I did for 3 years I searched for the right thing and then ended on Longmire. Mm-hmm. And the Longmire cast is just
fantastic.
As close as the Battlestar class. Maybe not just as close, but like super, super, super duper close. Like we all talk constantly as well. But since then, I've gone off to do other things as well, but I have not found a story that I thought was as good since Longmire ended. And Battlestar being like the one. And I think back now and, I think, God, Mary was 10 years older than me. So in 10 years, I will be the age Mary was when we were filming Battlestar, the miniseries, which is so weird to me. That is so weird to me. Just that idea of, this has been my entire life. You know what I mean? Like in 10 more years, in 20 more years, I will look back on that again and just be like, wow, Jesus, it's been, I've already been doing this for 30 years. In 20 more years, this industry will be the longest relationship I've ever had in my entire life.
That's right.
Yeah. It's crazy.
I got to say, for me, it's been such a blessing to be able to do this work. This is a privilege, being able to be a storyteller. And I lived my whole life doing it. I started in 1964 is when I started telling stories on the stage. And in 1960, I started telling it in rock and roll music. And in my earlier days, I'd tell the story playing on the diamond, a baseball diamond. I was very dramatic and physical.
Well, it's the Baptist upbringing.
Yeah,
if you're going to do it with flair. It's the truth. It's the truth. What do you hope that your legacy is?
My legacy is with my family, and my family consists of my kids and my grandkids and of course, my friends, my legacy is who did I live with and love and be a part of, You and I have been friends for 20 years. That's over 20 years, 21 years. I met you in 2003, and we became friends, and we would talk quite a bit. And like I said, I met your mom right away. And so we became really close because once I knew your parents, I knew you. And they were so excited because, that we were together. And she was so happy at what was happening. And
well, I think my mom thought I was safe. Like I'd been off on other shows and I never had someone to protect me. And I was always the youngest person on set. And, my experience in New York, I had just come off of the show with Richard Dreyfuss and Marcia Gay Harden, and I was floundering there. I was lost in New York. I mean, I was there during 9/11. That was part of it. But I think I was also emotionally and personally adrift. I was a young kid who probably left home really too soon and was trying to raise myself. And I think that that's what my mom saw in Battlestar and in you, was I had someone to watch over me. Not to pull from Battlestar, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it's the truth. And you asked me what my legacy is. My legacy is what I've given. I've probably given more than I've ever received. And that was because that's how it has to be. I've been given so much that I have to give back even more, or else you get off balance. The more you receive, the more you have to give. And the more you give, the more you receive. So that it's pretty much an ongoing process. And most recently, I've been working with kids for 27 years, 28 years. We've been developing the Youth Cinema Project and all the nonprofit work that I do. 95% of my work has been in nonprofit. And it's cost me almost as much money as I spent on my family to keep my nonprofit work moving forward inside for the community. And so I've been using my time and my energy and my finances to help me give back to the community. And I've been very successful. I mean, the community is just like overwhelmed with thankfulness, and they can't thank me enough. Go to my house, and it's like, I've received so many accolades of thank you for the work that I've given to the community. It's people come over and they go, "Oh my God!" I go, "Yeah, no, it's kind of crazy." And I said, people are very thankful, but I take every single group that said to me, "Thank you" to me, I'll give them thanks back. And so I have everyone, from the most humblest of organizations to the most prestigious organizations that have given me their thanks for the work that I've done in for humanity. And really, it's been the Youth Cinema Project is probably the most extraordinary. And it's thousands of children have gone through the process.
How do people give back to the Youth Cinema Project?
Well,
if they want to give to it,
they should just go online and check it out and see what it is and bring it to your schools. Every school in America should have it. We start in the 4th grade and we go all the way through to high school. And not one of our students that has been in our program has dropped out. They all graduate, and that in itself is incredible.
Yeah.
And we're averaging right now, we're in 18 school districts in the state of California, and thousands of kids are in the program every single day because it's not an after-school special. It's during the classroom. And if people if you had this when you were in the 4th grade, 10 years old, your whole life would have been different.
God, if I had one teacher that actually really
I mean, this was, we send in two mentors, 2 of them, and they go in and with the teacher. So now the kids have now 3 adults giving them their time and their energy and their understanding. Now, you got to remember, they're in there 90 minutes twice a week. They change a whole perspective on how to use the classroom. And the kids just grow. Their self-esteem, their self-respect, their self-worth grows to such a strength that by the time they're done with that program in the full, because we're from day one, first day of school, you're exposed to it all the way through to the very end. And at the very end, you show your product. And what are they making? They're telling stories. How are they telling the story? They're telling the story by way of film, and they're using storytelling. But they start out by writing and longhand, not in computer, longhand. And then you tell your story. You start out by doing a couple of sentences of a story. And when you're 10 years old, you come up with your little story and you put it down, and then you develop it. You go home, you work on it, and when we come back, you show how you developed your story. And then everybody tells their story and in a treatment form, and learns synopsis and treatments, and how to write in synopsis and treatments, how to tell a story. And then they turn around and they then have to write their movie and use their story. And we teach them how to do that. And so the first 3 to 4 months, it's nothing but
creative writing.
Right. And storytelling. And that means communication. That means collaboration. That means critical thinking. And that means creativity are being used every time you stop and think about what you're doing. And when you give a child at 10 years old the ability to communicate, collaborate, and use their critical thinking, what if I do this and if I do that? Wait a minute, if that person's doing this and that, and they start to use their sense of not learning the method of the teacher stands at the chalkboard and open your book to page 37. Okay, we'll be working on these problems or this issue, and this is the story, this is the history, whatever it is. And they're all like facing this way and the other. Here, we completely tear apart that process. And the desks, we move in, the desks are moved. They're not like this. They're in groups. So they're around each other, and now they're communicating, and it becomes the most creative and most unbelievable. When we took AFI, the American Film Institute, I brought them in. I'm on the board of trustees of the American Film Institute, and I've been there for years. And they gave me a doctorate from AFI. And so I invited them to the program, to see the program. And, they're the number one film institute in the world, not in the country, in the world. The American Film Institute is monumental, and it's so beautiful. And so that being said, that they came, all the heads of all the departments at AFI came, and they're so full of themselves as being the best that in the world. And they produce incredible filmmakers, incredible cinematographers, screenwriters, directors, producers, wardrobe, like every aspect that they create, they nurture it. And so they came. They were going to give us 10 minutes, and they had to leave. Okay. So they come, they stand in there, and they're sitting, 10 minutes goes by, 15 minutes go by, 20 minutes goes by, half an hour goes by, 40 minutes goes by, 90 minutes they stayed there. And many of them cried. Many of them were crying. And you could see how they got to them. And one of them turned to one of our mentors and said, this is what we do. This is how we teach. And we said, yeah, but we're doing it in the 4th grade. Guess what? It works. Yeah. It works.
Yeah.
And it does. It built such self-esteem of kids that so many of them don't speak English. And I'm not talking about just Spanish. I'm talking about Filipino. I'm talking about, Japanese. I'm talking about all the different cultures that originate here. And I mean, not originate, but come.
That are our melting pot of Los Angeles.
Yeah. Our salad bowl. And where the lettuce stays the lettuce, the tomato stays the tomato, the onion stays the onion, the olive stays the olive. On top of it, you can put a Russian or French dressing. And guess what? In East LA, where I was born, it was tossed. That's the difference. When I crossed the First Street Bridge over the river, LA River, and crossed over to downtown LA and then into the San Fernando Valley and into the Westwood and into, Palisades and all this, I found that they were all there, but they were
separate.
Yeah. The
peppers didn't touch the tomatoes.
No.
The tomatoes didn't touch the olives.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they weren't tossed.
But that was clean and pretty.
And guess what? It didn't taste as good as mine.
It doesn't. It doesn't.
Mine was so good.
Exactly.
It was tossed so well. And that's where I came from. And going back to the understanding, the kids then leave, and they left. When AFI left that day, they had learned something. All of those professors learned something. They wanted the program. They said, we want this program. This is 21st century teaching. We have not understood what is being elevated in the teaching methods that we've done since the 20th century. How have we've been looking for it. We've been looking for it. And here we were, and we showed it to them. And this was back in 2010, 2014.
Is it proprietary?
Yeah. I mean, basically, I spent millions of dollars creating the course, the curriculum.
Yeah.
And it took forever. And now George Clooney and what's the other one? George and somebody else who got together. I think it was Ava Longoria or somebody got together, and they wanted to do, and they're doing it. They have a program in a school. And they came to us and said, we'd like to study your curriculum. Can we do that? And we said, no, but you can team up with us, and we even be stronger, Oh, no, we have I said, great, go do your thing, man. Have a good time, But that curriculum is very important. It's the essence of life. It's how do you teach these kids to do this and keep them inside and really teach them the whole process? Because our mentors don't touch the equipment. We bring in to them. We bring them editing. We bring in post-production, production, and pre-production.
Have you ever thought about doing a master's class of it, like to get it out to the masses, to actually touch, influence and touch more kids than just in California?
Well, right now Arizona wants it, New Mexico wants it, Texas wants it, but there's a process.
Yeah.
The process is it's like, can you put a McDonald's in Georgia? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Can you put one in? Yeah, you can. Right now we're in Panama. Panama wanted it, and they really did want it, and they came in and they went through the processes and then brought it. They brought it to Panama, and they're using it, and the country, and we can push it out there, but we need to. There's a structure. It's like,
of course, you can't grow too big too fast.
Yeah, and we've been now for the way we are right now. We've been since 2014, so we're 10 years into the process the way we are now, and it took a long time. We stopped our Latino International Film Festival. We stopped doing that for 4 years while we moved into developing the Cinema Youth Project, and YCP has become so successful that now it's the premier sponsor and puts on the Latino International Film Festival. Before we used to have to go to different people to help us. Now we don't. Now the way that we've developed this and the way that it's grown, now the Youth Cinema Project, YCP, helps propagate the other nonprofits that we work on. So that's my legacy. Yeah. My legacy is in the nonprofit work that I've done in my life. When I pass, I'm sure will be the thing. As I was listening to, we were both with Carl Weathers' Celebration of Life, and they were talking about the work he did, which is fantastic. And they were all centered around his ability to give. He was a giving person. He was a teacher.
He was.
And a student. Mm-hmm. So it's what my legacy is in there, but it's really with my family.
Well, it's a good one. And this is just, I would imagine, part one of 20-part series with Eddie. Thank you for sitting down today.
It's my
There's
pleasure.
so much more to talk about, but
I'm here for you.
we just touched the surface.
Yeah.
Hi, guys. Welcome to the Hindsight. I am still Katee Sackhoff, and I'm joined, as usual, by my producer who doesn't want to be here, Jeff. Hi,
Katee. Hello.
It's just so sad. I'm just kidding. I know you're trying, which is why I love it even more. Like, I know this is not your comfort zone, and I love it so much because you keep me on track.
I'm just trying to think of this as a long form interview that I have with you where every week I get to just continuously interview you over and over again. And I think eventually I'll probably just release a book about you.
This is just like, this is the only way that you can get through it is that you're doing like a 10-year interview on me or something like that. That's optimistic, you guys. If we don't make money on this fucking show soon, like it's not going to be 10 years.
Yeah. How about our 2%ers? Are they out there?
Yeah. Where are those people? Where are those people that are going to buy all the merch and keep our show running?
Yeah. I kind of want to do like an informal poll though. And I want to give people some kind of like call to action or even just something to post in the comments or to put on the Instagram or something to know that you're listening to the Hindsight, just so we know how many people are here. I mean, we have metrics and stuff, but I feel like, Katee, is there some kind of phrase that you're thinking of that Eddie has inspired in you that you want people to post?
That Eddie has inspired in me?
This episode. Yeah, it's specific to this episode.
Specific to this episode. Oh, my Lord.
Well, specific to Eddie. Specific
to Eddie?
Yeah. Something that if you say the word right now, people will post it and they'll know to.
I think that like if people posted like, what do you hear?
What do you hear?
Yeah.
Because that's his phrase to you,
six.
right?
It's his phrase to me on Battlestar.
Yeah.
What do you hear?
What do you hear? I like that because it's a little less obvious than So Say We All. Because I feel like there'll be a lot of people probably posting that.
And then people would jump on it too.
Yeah. So what do you hear?
Yeah. So if there are people, it's going to be 5 people, Jeff.
Well, that's what we're going to find out.
It's going to be 5 people. But if you actually are, that would be really cool. This episode is so interesting. You know, Eddie came over. I was staying at my friend Sharon's house. I flew into LA for a celebration of life, or Carl Weathers' celebration of life, actually. And Eddie was actually there too. It was so crazy to see him the night before as well. And because I didn't know he was going to be there. And then I saw him at Sharnie's the next day. And he's just a wonderful person. Eddie is phenomenal man and just such a tremendous talent. So
I've listened to him talk for another few hours. He seems like he's endlessly full of stories and insight. And, you know, the story that he tells and that you tell actually in this episode about his advice to you on teaching you how to act is a pretty powerful story of that. And I really love that.
Yeah. You know, and I've talked about it a lot because it really is such a poignant moment in my career where, you know, I moved to California, like, you know, I could play make-believe just like the best of them, I guess. Well, maybe not the best of them. I'm not Meryl Streep, but could be. Never gotten the opportunity. But you know what I mean? You're only as good as the opportunities you get, Jeff. But I sort of just faked it. Like I hadn't studied. And so I just continued to go to work and play make-believe. I would memorize my dialogue. I would sort of think about what I was going to do. And then I'd be like, go to work, you know. No one's telling me I'm doing a bad job and I keep booking jobs. So just keep doing it, right? But I also had a lot of fun and like messed around on set. I was a kid, you know, like we talked about Jermaine O'Neal, like the last episode about 18-year-olds given money and sent away from their parents. Like that was pretty much me. Like at 18, they were like, sure, you can have your own show. Bye. Here's some money. See how that goes. And by the time I got to Battlestar, I'd been on like 4 shows and blew a lot of money, got in a lot of trouble and didn't take it very seriously. And Eddie put the kibosh on that pretty damn fast. So,
no, that's great. I wanted to get into a little bit because you guys talk quite a bit about different methods of acting. And as you're somebody that hasn't studied acting. He clearly is somebody that has. And I think people hear the term method actor and they have a certain idea of what a method actor is. But I think truthfully, and you might know more about this than I do, but like there are a couple of methods of acting and several. I mean, the general idea of method acting is somebody who, this is the idea that people have in their head, is that it's somebody who's so into their character that they won't break character, and it's generally sort of frowned upon and thought of as annoying. And you have your famous examples of like Daniel Day-Lewis or Jared Leto, I believe Marlon Brando back in the day, like those kind of people. So
yeah, I know some too. I think that the people that I've worked that are method actors, they will stay in character the length of the day at work. They will probably not take it home with them. But if you stay in a character long enough throughout your day for episode after episode after episode, it can't help but seep into your life when you leave set. And I've seen and heard of, friends that have kind of, lost their cool every once in a while because they're still sort of deep in a character or something like that. It's not my method by no means. That's not who I am as an actor.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about that before with your thing. And I think, from the other side of it, like I've done some casting before, and I think so much of casting a character and what makes a good character is finding the right person that can inhabit that character. And I think, it's interesting what that story that Eddie told, it just perfectly illustrated the dynamic that your characters had on the show, in addition to just your real life dynamic. I mean, Starbuck is this hot shot that doesn't really take anything seriously, and Adama is the commander who she has a lot of respect for. And on the show, he would knock you down a peg, occasionally. So it's interesting how your real life attitudes were so close to your character, which is what makes those characters so good. I mean, we've talked about it before. It's the same for Bo-Katan, like very similar sort of mentality there as well.
Yeah. I find that a lot of times, for me, that I've had situations where people have wanted to control my performance too much. And it does start to sort of get in my way. And so sometimes, I used to say one of the best things that they did on Battlestar Galactica was they gave us all the tools that we needed, and then they got out of our way as performers and they let us just act. And there is such a rawness to that, and a bravery, like as creators and as a showrunner and as writers and as directors, to know that you've cast the right people and let them do what they're going to do. And that's not to say that you're obviously not in there participating and directing or talking to them about what the story is, but trust in the fact that you cast the right person for something and then let them do what you hired them to do. If you try desperately to sort of contain a performer and make them do exactly what you want them to do, I don't know. You've just cut them off at the knees, you know what I mean? And taken the art out of it, I think. And it also worked that way, which is not fun.
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit on a previous episode too, about like I think it was on the Simon, oh my God, I can't say his last name. Cassianettis, yes, Cassianettis. his episode where you talked a little bit about the control that you have over a character. And when you're in a universe like Star Wars, you don't necessarily have as much control over that character that you would in another project.
Right.
I think that's interesting when it comes to the method, because how do you, I mean, you've talked about this before and I'm not going to press you on it, but you have had conversations with Dave about the characters and like the background and all that stuff. But I guess my question is it a different experience for you when you don't really have that much control over the character and it's a writer and a corporation coming up with that stuff for you?
I think it depends on who you are and the day and the situation and everything, I, as a person and my ego, I feel like I do much better when someone gives me the trust and the faith and then lets me roll with it. I find that if too many rails have been put around me, I can get incredibly insecure and may or may not ever find my footing, which is not the best way to be creative, you know?
Right.
So I personally do a lot better when I work in situations where somebody, for lack of a better word, to go back to where we started, sort of like gets out of my way and lets me do what I do, you know?
Right. What about like scenarios where, I don't even know if this exists, but like, are there like comic books or novels about either Starbuck or Bo-Katan that exist out there that you're not involved in?
Yeah, I think there's like comic books about Star Wars and stuff that I've never read that Bo is in. I know there is some Battlestar Galactica stuff that I've never read as well. So, I mean, you know, your ownership over a character only goes so far. And you can take or leave, I guess, that stuff that you weren't involved in as backstory if you want to, or life experience in the character if you want to, if it serves like your creative process, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen it all.
Yeah. It's just an interesting experience to, you know, somebody that you've thought about a lot, put a lot of work into creating, and then she's off having adventures somewhere else. You know?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's sort of the thing, right? Is that like, I don't own her. I don't own any of the characters that I ever played. You know, someone else created them. But yeah, I don't know. I'd like to think that when people think about Starbucks, they only think about me now. But I know that's also not the case.
And what do you think Bitch Pudding is doing these days?
Oh my God. She's probably masturbating on top of someone's grave. I don't know.
Now that's a character you really feel ownership over, right?
I do. Like she is me.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
The closest character to your real personality.
Ever played. Yeah, exactly. Oh God, help me. No, like not at all. That character, terrifying. Yeah. Oh my God. Eddie is amazing though. You know, like
he's
talking to him
sage.
and he really is. I look back on that show that we did together and think, how did he know? Like, how did he know that it was going to be successful?
Yeah. When he's talking to you all in the trailer.
Because he knew.
About that. Yeah.
He
and he
absolutely
kept calling
knew.
you guys kids too, which I love.
Yeah, he really did. And he still thinks of us all as kids, which is really funny to me. But at the same time, I also do get it. You know, like I call my husband, sometimes I'll refer to people as I'll be like, you know, God, they're just a bunch of kids. And he'll be like, they're 2 years older than me, Katee. I'm like, fuck. I'm like, yeah, well, you were born in 1990, all right?
Yeah, you can't call them kids.
You can't. After, 25, they're no longer kids.
But when he's literally almost 40 years older than you, I think he can call
Eddie?
you Eddie. Yeah, Eddie can call you kids.
Oh yeah, no, he can call us kids. Like I think that he's earned that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's just, God, he's such a. We also talked about the fact that like Eddie knows everyone. Like the week before, I sat down with him. He was on TV hugging Nicole Kidman when she won some award. And we were like, we immediately started texting each other going like, how the fuck does Eddie know Nicole Kidman?
Of
course Eddie knows Nicole Kidman. You know what I mean? Like he knows everyone. He's been in the business for so long and he's so respected.
He's 1 degree away from Kevin Bacon.
He might be Kevin Bacon. You know what I mean? Like but he's he's such a wonderful person. And, you know, he's a wonderful human being on camera and as a partner in scenes. And the way that he raises his children, the way that he raises other people's children. Like he is such a great guy.
I just looked it up. His bacon number is 2.
Oh, really? What's my bacon number?
Let's see.
They're like 0. My bacon number is at least 2 because Mary McDonald worked with Kira Sedgwick.
Yeah, you're a 2. You were in My First Mister with Christina Lottie.
Oh yeah, Christine Lottie.
And she was in 8 with Kevin Bacon.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
I was completely cut out of that movie.
Oh, so does this not count?
I don't know. It still was there. I was still there. I did it. Or no, wait. I was completely cut out of The Glass House with Lily Sobieski. Maybe that's the movie I was completely cut out of, was The Glass House.
Lily Sobieski's in My First Mister.
Then maybe I was cut out of that one. What was The Glass House? Am I even credited in The Glass House?
Let's see.
Jeff,
Let's
These
see.
are just the things that happen in life. I don't even know if I'm credited in the Glass House. I don't even know if it's on my resume.
On IMDb, I am not seeing you on the top cast.
The Glass House movie. Another Lily Sobieski movie.
Yeah.
I think I did 2 movies with Lily.
Yeah, you're not on the IMDb cast list.
Cut out of it. I was in it.
it.
I was in it. It was a movie with, Castellan Skarsgård. I had and Diane Lane. I was in that movie too. Cut completely out of it. Not even in the credits.
Wow.
Crazy,
Okay.
huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if it's that I sucked. What I was told was that the movie came in too long and I was one of the only characters that was self-contained and that they could cut out of the movie and condense the whole thing. Like I had no scenes with anyone else except her.
Well, you made the credit list in My First Mister on IMDb, so.
I don't remember what that was either.
2001?
No, I have no idea.
Right,
no recollection of any of these movies.
Speaking of 2001, I had a question to ask you.
Yes.
We're having fun here, but I'm going to turn us back into a serious direction a bit.
Oh, no.
And this is just something that occurred to me while listening to Eddie talk about, he was talking about the importance of that show and how that specific scene where he's, yelling, "So say we all to you." And he was talking about how the audience was going to go through a particular trauma by the time they got to that scene because of all the events that happened in that miniseries. And you had to play that scene assuming that all of that had happened already, even though you were shooting this as like your first or second day or something like that. You were shooting that scene. So my brain starts running, and Battlestar is often referenced as an allegory for 9/11 and what happened there, because the show came out so soon after 9/11.
Yeah, we were filming right after.
Yeah, it was I think a lot of the popularity of that show, not only with it being such a good show and the writing and the acting and everything, but the similarity to a society going through a collective trauma was resident in the air. And my question is, one, was that talked about on the show? Were you aware of that on the show? And two, your personal experience with being in New York on 9/11, did that affect you in any way specifically with Battlestar?
Those are good questions. Jeff, I've never been asked these questions before.
I'm telling you, working on the book.
Which is rare for me to say that. We were aware of it as a cast, so much so that when they sent us to boot camp, we joked that we were like, please, I hope they don't accidentally send us.
All right, you guys this way. What?
Exactly.
Oh, this isn't set.
As I'm clutching my pillow.
Guns are fake.
Actor boot camp. No, we were sent to a boot camp, and it was very interesting because it was very close to 9/11. And it was strange. It was like this sort of camaraderie building experience that was really wonderful, but we definitely thought about it. It was on the front of our minds. And what we were told, and it's something that is, I don't know as much as today as it was then potentially, but back in 2003, 2001, when I got the script for Battlestar, December of 2001, I think I got the script. So right after 9/11. Right. Basically what we were told was that you're allowed to be topical because you're not real. You're science fiction. It's not real. It's fake. A show like The West Wing or something that is literally based in present time, in reality, couldn't and didn't have as much freedom. Shows like that, not necessarily The West Wing, but shows like that didn't have freedom to touch on subjects like suicide bombings. Things like that we talked about in Battlestar Galactica, that we featured in Battlestar Galactica. We were allowed to do it because it wasn't real. Right. And so it was allowed to be topical and touch on all of the things that were going on in our society and in the world. And I do agree with you that that's one of the reasons why it was successful. I also think that it was one of the reasons why it was so successful with our servicemen and women. I cannot tell you how many times I've heard that the DVDs of Battlestar Galactica were passed around the barracks when people were deployed, and that they were watching it when they were in Afghanistan or somewhere else. And that there was a kinship in the show to the people that were going through it in real life. And so it was definitely topical, and we were allowed to talk about a lot of that stuff. And then for me personally, I've always been very good at separating like reality from the fiction of my job. I think that, being in New York during 9/11 definitely sort of changed my life, and a lot of things about my life and sort of the fears that I developed after that and things like that. But it never really crept into my art, I think, because I sort of probably buried like that fear so deep, So I don't know. I think for me, it never really crept in to my work. It's crept into my life, like I'm incredibly scared of heights. I can't stay in tall buildings at all. It's really hard for me. Things like that are really, and I can't, that's a thing that I haven't really been able to break,
Yeah. Well, it's interesting coming, in the same conversation where we talk about your carefree attitude to acting at the time, and you're coming out of this experience in, being in New York on 9/11, and you're on this show that is very overtly about 9/11, and yet as an actor, you're not using any of that. You're not doing anything with it.
No, I never really used my own life experience for things. I always just really sort of tried to put myself in the situation of the character I was inhabiting.
Yeah.
And then drew from that.
Yeah.
I think the only time I ever really used my own like life experience other than like certain things, like of course, like I've been through a breakup, that's easy to draw from. But I think like the only time I've actually used my own personal experience to draw from and felt tragedy in was on Longmire, when my character loses her baby and feels responsible for the loss of her unborn child.
Yeah.
I felt that so desperately because I knew I couldn't carry my own children. So I used that because I needed to draw from that to film a scene where I almost took my own life. So I had to pull from something in my life that was so personal to get to that point, because I couldn't identify with it otherwise.
No, it's interesting. Thank you for answering that.
Yeah, of course. Let's talk about some comments.
Yeah,
shall we? Alan Thompson, 2063, says, love the entertainment. Would you consider fantasy like The Wheel of Time? Love the Star Wars Trek stuff and the humor. Yeah, of course I would. It's one of those funny things where I wish I had the ease of getting hired and stuff. You know what I mean? Like, I wish it was so easy that I could like call someone. I just had a friend send something the other day about these new characters. What did he say? He literally, and God love him, because I wish it was this easy, but he literally said, with the new Captain America movie introducing the Serpent Society, your reps need to get you in to play one of the many dope female characters, especially either Viper or Diamondback. Super cool.
Yeah.
It'll never happen. Like, I wish it was that easy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I wish I could just call and be like, yo, there's a really cool, strong female character.
Yeah.
I would love to play that character. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard as shit, especially now in this industry.
You're also going through a representative change right now, aren't you?
I am. I'm in the process of trying to hire an agency. By the time this comes out, I will have hired someone. And I also, parted ways with my manager of 27 years. So that was a really hard thing.
Well, just tell them, and then all of our 2%ers here will get on a fan campaign to get you in the new Secret Wars Avengers movie.
Yeah, exactly. The Serpent Society. I would love that. But yeah, of course, I love Wheel of Time. I love all that shit. I love fantasy. It's some of my favorite stuff. I was raised on it. It's what I watch. So it's what I want to be a part of course. Arthur Wigglesby, 8590, I love the name, says, Nickelback doesn't have better anything than anyone, an impressive feat for a band that was constantly putting out new albums. I remember being so annoyed that there always seemed to be a new single from them on the radio, and it always sucked.
It's been a while since we've had some good old-fashioned Canada hate on the show.
Canada hate, it's true.
Yeah.
Oh, poor Nickelback. I feel so bad for them. I actually liked Nickelback. Look at the photograph.
You like the chorus of the one song is what you mean.
Yeah, that's the only Nickelback song I know. And then we thunder
I can't add anything to this conversation because I don't know anything about
we need
them.
Robin. It's, when Robin's not here, we can't bang on Canada.
That's true. It's just punching down.
It's punching down.
Technically punching up, but
it's technically punching up. I was gonna say we have to be geographic. We've learned the lesson of me in geography. We've got to be geographically correct here. Let's get into the movie sack or the mail sack. Movie sack. Let's get into the mail sack.
Teaser.
Mail sack. We're going to the mail sack. Mail sack. Why are we calling it mail sack?
I thought you were going to dance there for a second.
I couldn't help it. I pulled it out at the very end. This is what a part of the mail sack where we asked people what movies did everybody hate that they loved, right?
Yeah, what movies are people sleeping on?
Sam says, I think I have a good one that I know so many people hate, but I can't get enough of. It is Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets. Sam, you're so wrong. This is a shit movie. I've seen that movie God knows how many times, and I always come out on the other end loving it even more, even though just about everyone I've talked to about every discussion in a forum that exists just shit all over this movie. But I remember first watching it and just loving it, and I've been a fan ever since. Okay, I'm going to say that was my first impression, but I loved this movie too. I love Channing Tatum. The fact that I even know that he's in it means I actually liked it.
Is he in that movie?
Yeah, right?
Are you sure
we're thinking of the same movie?
No, you're thinking of, are we thinking of Jupiter Ascending?
Yes.
With Mila Kunis.
Yes. I actually think I watched this movie, and I think that I actually thought that Rihanna was actually really good in it. I remember the character. Yeah, the character's name was Bubble, right? Yeah.
In Jupiter Ascending?
No, in Valerian.
Valerian. Oh, I didn't realize she was in it.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I've never seen that movie.
Yeah. I need to watch it again, Sam. I shit on it super fast.
We're so wrong.
And I was thinking about a different movie. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Yes. But I do like Luc Besson. Fifth Element was one of the best movies of all time.
It's incredible.
It's an incredible movie.
It's
incredible movie.
Defining.
God, Bruce Willis at his best.
Yeah.
Other than Die Hard. David says Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny and Atlas starring Jennifer Lopez. Both were criticized and Indiana Jones bombed. But when I watched it, I found it to be quite good. It's got everything an indie movie should have. And in my opinion, it's better than Temple of Doom and Kingdom of Crystal Skull. Wow, that's
a tough sentence.
That's a tough sentence there, David. Atlas was another fun movie that got chewed up and spit out by critics, but it was a damn fun ride. I didn't really like Atlas, and I am a huge J-Lo fan. Like, you give me some wedding planner any day of the week, and I'm a happy girl. Atlas, I think I had a hard time with that. I don't even remember the movie.
I didn't watch it, but
yeah, my
impression was it kind of got wrapped up in all the tabloid drama that J-Lo is having right now, and people steamrolled it because of that.
Because Atlas is the new one.
I'm pretty sure, right?
Is Atlas the new one where she's like tough and stuff?
Yeah, she's like in a big mech.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Are you thinking of a different movie now?
I was. Again? But yeah, I was again. Yeah, J-Lo, I remember seeing the trailer for this movie and wishing that I was in it.
Do you want to guess what its Rotten Tomatoes score is?
2.8.
No, it did better than that.
The lowest Rotten Tomato I have, I think, is like a 4.6.
It's 19%.
Oh.
But Metacritic
I'm thinking of the IMDb number. You're right.
Yeah.
19%. So it wasn't like a negative. Can you have a negative?
No. I think you can have a 0.
19% is pretty bad. I don't think I ever had anything that low.
What movie were you thinking?
What was I thinking? I don't even know what I was thinking. I was thinking a movie about gods and atlases.
No, I mean, which movie do you think had the bad score? I want to look up the Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh, God. I'm sure that movie were at the Talking Machine Gun movie.
Oh, yeah. What was that one called again?
It was called The Last Sentinel. It was probably, I'm sure that has that was probably so low that Rotten Tomatoes was like, we don't need to even rate that.
This is not even a movie.
It's not.
Let's see. Last Sentinel. There you are in your cutoff shirt. Oh, 14%.
Oh,
there you go.
What was that sound?
Which one? The one where I went, oh.
Oh, was that you?
That was me.
I thought Robin came in and got on the other mic or something and made a noise, but
Oh, God. No, that was me. Because I was like, wow, damn. But here's the thing. A 14% with a movie with that budget,
yeah.
and Atlas got 19% with that budget. I feel like
Not
that's a
bad.
win.
Well,
It's
yeah,
not
when you-
bad.
When
It's not
you
bad.
when you balance the scales a little bit.
It does. Because you gotta talk about all of the criteria that goes into it. All of it.
Man. One of
Wow.
the reviews says, in one scene, Wilson swims in what logically must be knee-deep water. I don't know what that means.
Is
but-
Owen Wilson in the movie?
No, this is Last Sentinel.
Oh,
Who's
Last
Wilson?
Sentinel.
Who plays Wilson?
Oh, was Wilson played by? I don't know. I don't remember.
It doesn't matter.
It was like
truly-
2005. I don't
Oh,
remember.
Don Wilson plays.
Oh, Don the
Talus.
Dragon Wilson.
Yeah,
And Robin goes, "Why do you keep calling him Don the Dragon Wilson?"
because he's a dragon.
Because he's the dragon.
I truly love that you are credited as girl.
I also played girl in Futurama, so it's I've done this multiple
Yeah.
times. Yeah, this was a fun episode.
Well,
We're
we
getting-
didn't touch on Indiana Jones first off.
We didn't. We need to talk about that really quick because the Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, is that the new one?
Yes,
It's the new one with what's her name, Phoebe Bridgerton.
Phoebe Waller-Bridge.
Thank
Bridges.
you. Yes,
Yes.
Waller, who's absolutely amazing.
Yes,
She's incredible. She's in Fleabag. She's incredible
she's great.
actress. God, she's good.
talking about
Um,
defining.
Yeah, she's
Yeah.
phenomenal. I don't think it's not a pile of crap. By no means. I agree I was entertained, but you cannot tell me that it's better than Temple of Doom.
Yeah, that's tough.
That's tough.
better than Crystal Skull for sure.
Okay.
And I will say of the new one that the first 30 minutes of it are pretty good. Like I was on board with the whole de-aging thing and seeing that stuff. I was fine with all that. It was fun. It was exciting. The movie turned into a cartoon after that. But,
I don't remember where it lost me, to be honest. I don't
Yeah.
remember the movie well enough to remember where it lost me.
yeah,
at all.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
just, it's fun to see it. I just don't know if we need to make any more Harrison Ford Indiana Jones movies.
Yeah. You know what I really wanted? And they did this with Angelina Jolie, but they never really kept it going. Like, I would love to have a female Indiana Jones.
Didn't
think
they
it would
make
be
a
really
new
fun.
Tomb Raider with what's her face in it? This is
With
just the
Alicia
episode.
Vikander.
Yeah.
They did, but they only did one, and I didn't. I have a hard time, and I had this with Angelina Jolie at some points as well. Like when, you want to believe the physicality of a character, and you want to see them in like phenomenal shape. And I think sometimes when you've got to suspend your disbelief when you know somebody is slighter than you would necessarily view that character in real life,
Okay.
it's harder.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just my opinion. I think that, that
Yeah.
Alicia Vikander is a phenomenal actress.
Yeah.
Just phenomenal.
All right. Well, we're gonna take a poll here. Who wants to see Katee in a female Indiana Jones movie? Not necessarily Indiana Jones, but the genre. You're an adventurer out looking for artifacts.
I would love it.
I'm gonna
Maybe
do
I'll do it. Maybe I'll do it in a Hallmark movie.
it. Yeah. Well, where you meet a man and fall in love.
Hey, they're more progressive now.
Yeah. I'm sorry. You meet a woman and fall in love.
Oh, God.
Okay.
I hope no one listened to the episode this long.
If you have, I'm joking. I apologize. I believe in love of all kinds.
Of course we do. Of course we do. You guys, thank you so much for listening to the episode. Please come back next week and make sure you send all your questions and comments to thesackoffshow@gmail.com. And make sure that you go and you say, what do you hear all over social media? So we know if you're part of the 2%. Other than that, see you next Tuesday. And that's what's up.